We can debate and we can argue, but that'll be a different
That's
forum.
right.
My answer to you is simply this. Businesses have an option of how to operate. They have to factor into the cost of doing business. They have a business model, or they should create a business model and a business plan on how to be successful. That includes paying workers in order to produce a service, to manufacture a product, to sell a product, whatever that may be.
I gave you an example of companies. I want you to address this question.
I'm trying to address the question.
The question is the companies that are breaking even right now.
Companies that are breaking even, fictitious company A, B, and C.
Are there companies that are breaking even right now?
I'm assuming so.
Of course there are.
We're making the assumption that you're correct.
Of course there has to be. In such a big economy, there's so many, some are making a lot of money.
There could be none in the middle. Some can be over, some can be under.
But some are breaking even. Well, let's
middle.
talk about the guys that are breaking even. So these guys, if they raise their wages, they will start to incur a cost. And you say, oh no, they could just raise their prices. Let me correct
you. I didn't say, oh no, they could just raise their prices. What I specifically said is one option they have is to raise their prices that customers can pay. Here are their options: fire employees, raise their costs, raise their prices for products or services, or decide not to do business. Those are the three options that those individuals that are breaking even, because those are the only individuals that you decide to talk about right now. Those are the only three options that I believe that they have at this particular point. I just want to know, did that answer your question directly?
Well, I want to examine those three scenarios that you just mentioned. I think they're true. So if they fire the employees, that's a bad thing, right?
Yes.
If they go out of business, that's also bad, because everybody will be unemployed from that company. Okay, so the other option is, where they don't have to fire them, is they just raise their prices. Now,
they don't just raise their prices, they assess it. They raise prices where they can.
That's a possibility, you say.
But I think you're overgeneralizing it. But yeah, that's a possibility.
That's the one you mentioned. So what I'm trying to ask you is this. If they could raise their prices right now, before the minimum wage law went into effect, going from $7.25 to $10, wouldn't they do it already?
No. Now let me explain to you the thought process of supply and demand, so that you can understand competition.
Okay.
If I am company A and company B and company A prices are around the same, no one's going to jump out there and raise their prices, because now my prices are higher than my competitor. The issue becomes when they have to pay more. They both equally have to pay more. So it's increasing their cost of production and cost of doing business. So now that company A and company B pay the same amount, or at least they're forced to pay a different amount in order to stay in business, for their employees to be paid more, then it's now fair and competitive for both of them to end up raising their prices, so that one person's prices is not higher than the others, and they're not actually getting the production out of the consumer base that they would like to get to. So that's
let me finish.
That's supply and demand.
Okay.
That's supply and demand.
I want to talk to you about supply and demand in a moment, but what if the other company is making a profit? They don't have to raise their prices. They'll just continue to undercut the company that's breaking even, and then that company will go out of business because it'll incur a loss.
Why would any company do that? Why would any company go out of business when they have an opportunity to raise their prices, if necessary, in order to equal their cost of doing business?
Well, if they raise their prices, they may get less income, because less people will be willing.
I think you're stepping outside the
In other words, they think
principal theories of supply and
their
demand.
view. This is what these guys know their business, and right now, before the minimum wage, they're not raising their prices.
But neither is anyone else. Neither is anyone else. Neither is any of their competitors.
The competitors don't have to raise their prices.
No one has to raise their prices right now. That's the theory.
Because they're making a profit.
All of this is assumptions. So you can't change the assumption to match your opinion or principle. You have to leave it general, so that the assumption matches all the way throughout.
I asked you about your principle before, which is whether you should respect everybody's judgment as to how much to work for and how much to pay for a worker. You said no, because people are bad. Right? In
a utopian society, your thought process would be good, because we do have bad actors out there. We cannot trust everybody.
And so we should have the government controlling all the decisions of the citizens.
We should not have the government controlling all the decisions of the citizens.
Because people are bad, and they don't exercise good judgment, and they won't act fairly.
I'm trying to be very, 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 very cooperative with you, but if you take my statements and you overgeneralize them.
Okay. Well, let me ask you. You raise supply and demand. Do you believe in the law of supply and demand?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Does the law of supply and demand say that if you raise the price, the demand will decrease.
If there are other factors, but generally speaking,
yes.
Generally speaking, yes.
Right. So if you raise the price of labor, the demand for labor will be reduced, correct?
Generally speaking,
right.
That is possible.
And that will cause more unemployment, which is something you don't want, right?
Generally speaking, if you're only using those factors, that could be accurate. There are additional factors that throws a monkey wrench in that theory, but generally speaking, you are correct.
Right. So are you willing to risk all the jobs of all these thousands of people without really knowing the facts of each individual company in the States and acknowledging that according to the law of supply and demand...
Before you even finish it. Absolutely not.
Let me finish it.
Absolutely not. The reality...
But you're in favor of raising the minimum wage.
I am in favor of raising the minimum wage.
But you don't know how many people are going to be unemployed as a result.
I have no idea how many people are going to be employed without the minimum wage.
But don't you feel for these people?
I feel for everybody.
I mean,
I feel for everybody.
These are the less.
I feel for you.
Right. Oh well, I do for
I feel
you
for
too,
you
brother.
that you have to overgeneralize my statements.
Okay. Well, so you believe in the law of supply and demand.
I believe that everybody has.
If you raise the price,
I believe that everybody has a right to earn a decent and fair wage.
Right. Okay. But can you force somebody else to pay you?
What that decent and fair wage
Should you be
is.
able to force someone to pay you a wage, or should the employer be free to hire you or not hire you?
Not every employer, because employers would take advantage of individuals who don't have a voice to speak up for themselves.
Should we respect the judgment of the...
I just answered that question. No.
Okay.
No, we should not respect the judgment of every employer, because every employer would not do the right thing. I am not unclear or ambiguity. There's no ambiguity in what I'm saying in that.
So you think that the employer should be forced to hire someone?
No, the employer is not forced to hire anybody.
Okay, so they should be free to fire them if they want, right?
Absolutely.
So if you raise the minimum wage and in the judgment of the employer, that employee is not producing a value added to the product or service worth the minimum wage he's paying, he's going to fire him.
Absolutely, but that's the cost of doing business, my friend.